In 1961, President John F. Kennedy inspired a nation. He declared a bold moonshot goal, an audacious goal, to get a man on the moon and safely back in a decade. What is a moonshot goal? How does it animate us? How does it build our collective capacity to explore new worlds? I've been on an amazing journey, moonshot journey, for the last decade, inspired by my son's inability to learn to read in kindergarten. It's transformed me, it's transforming my community, and it's teaching us that if we embrace breakdowns, they lead to breakthroughs. Like John F. Kennedy's goal, our moonshot quest is inspiring our community to figure out what it takes to get children reading on grade level by the end of 3rd grade. We believe that public schools are the gateway to the American dream, that they are noble in aspiration. All children are worthy and welcomed through the front doors of our public school system. But we are not yet able to unlock the potential of all those children, and therefore our nation. What we have learned in this journey is that in our attempt to unlock their brains, to get them to learn and grow, we first have to unlock our brains and learn to read and grow. We've learned that literacy is a team sport and it requires every one of us. So I hope this story will inspire you to join the journey. Abraham Lincoln said that there's no more important endeavor that we the people can engage in than education. And if we go back to Plato, he said the purpose of education is to give the body and the soul all the beauty and the perfection of which they are capable. If a man neglects education, he walks lame to the end of his life. And the most important part of life is training in the nursery. So my name is Barbara Hammond. I'm co-founder and CEO of an educational nonprofit here in Vero Beach, Florida, called the Learning Alliance. We employ business professionals alongside educators and artists. We are an innovative cauldron transforming education that is best by kids. We unite a community and schools, and this means police officers, it means the school superintendent, it means philanthropists, it means investors, it means our children, our teachers, our government officials, to join our moonshot quest and figure out how we're going to unlock 90% of the brains in this community so that those children are reading on grade level by the end of 3rd grade. Our magical school bus is magical to both students, children, and the adults. And what it symbolizes is our relentless commitment to seek best practice solutions across our great nation, bring them back here to Indian River County in magical, amazing, and engaging ways for our children so that they will learn to read by 3rd grade. So, how did I get interested in early education? Well, when my child Tommy was in kindergarten, I got the call all moms fear. Will you please come in to the office and talk to us about your son? I was told that my son wasn't doing his job, the most basic job that any of us are supposed to be able to do, and that is learn to read. So obviously I look at Tommy and I'm thinking, oh my God, he's being a bad boy. What isn't he doing? And then I thought, oh my gosh, I'm ashamed as a parent. What haven't I done to prepare my son? And then I started asking the teacher some questions. Where was it breaking down? Was he not listening? Was he listening and not processing? And she couldn't answer any of my questions. All she could tell me is she didn't have any skills to teach him to read, and she didn't know where it was breaking down. So I went home to talk to my husband that night. Luckily, his mother-in-law is a fierce woman who said, I will train Tommy, I will teach him to read, get him to my house 2 times a week after school, and I will teach him to read. Meanwhile, while I'm struggling with my child, one of my best friends, Liz Remington, is struggling with her 3rd grader. Now, if you're not learning to read by 3rd grade, it's a mental health issue. Every 3rd grader knows and looks around them, you are supposed to be able to read. So she moved her kids literally out of Vero Beach up to Baltimore and put them in a dyslexic school. And there she saw amazing teaching and kids who were struggling suddenly able to read, write, speak. Now, Liz came back to Vero Beach a few years later, and my son Tommy was able to read. My mother-in-law, can you imagine? Mother-in-law is fixing all your problems, but my mother-in-law had done 3 things that I later saw all great educators do. And one is that I would literally give her Tommy crying out of the car. Can you imagine a 5-year-old who wants to go to more school after he's been in school all day? And she would download Calm. She knew he was competent and capable. She made him feel competent and capable. And then what she would do is she researched a best practice reading curriculum. And it taught him English as if English was a foreign language. There are 26 letters, 44 sounds, and 250 different ways to write those sounds, to spell those sounds. So Tommy became successful, and she never, ever, the third thing she did was let the bar down and say, oh, it's okay. You know, you can't do this. She kept the bar high. She scaffolded him for success. So when Liz Remington came back, I invited her over for dinner, and I started talking to her, and Liz knew things that no teacher I had talked to knew. She knew how to entertain my kids. She knew how to educate my kids. And at the end of the dining room dinner party, we decided we had to start something, and that became the birth of the Learning Alliance. Now, when we first started our research, we thought it was an issue for our kids and for kids with learning disabilities. Well, we looked at the statistics. It turns out it's a national crisis. So if you look at the statistics, in K to 3, kindergarten through 3rd grade, you learn to read so that you can read to learn thereafter. If you can't read by the end of 3rd grade, you are going to struggle in social studies, science, math is even word problems. And 65% of our 3rd graders in the United States of America are not reading proficiently. Half of those are below a basic level. That's shocking. Most people don't know that. And the last bullet point is if you can't learn to read by the end of 3rd grade, you only have a 1 in 4 chance of catching up after that. So what's the impact on the child who can't read? What's the impact on the adult they become? What's the impact on our society? Children who can't learn to read by the end of 3rd grade are actually 4 times more likely to drop out of high school. 85% of juvenile delinquents are poor readers, 75% of those on welfare, 75% of inmates are actually poor readers. We know that the 2 top reasons that people can't be recruited into the military, obesity and low literacy. So Liz and I got back together and we said we need to find a philanthropist who is going to invest and allow us to bring best practices back to Vero. We met Ray Oglethorpe, who happens to be the former president of AOL. He's an educational philanthropist, very curious about education because he says he's the poster boy for public education. He would still be in the coal mines today had he not had public education. So anyway, the 3 of us went around the country, looked at best practices, and we saw amazing summer programs, school programs, after-school programs. I mean, the stuff was out there. Why didn't we have it scaled anywhere? It wasn't just Vero Beach. It wasn't scaled anywhere in our public schools. So we formed an alliance with the superintendent of the public school system here. We did a pilot program for about 4 months, at which point all the teachers said, oh my gosh, kids can read. I just didn't know how to teach reading. And they would cry. They thought of 30 years of their career of all the kids that had walked out crying, and it was because they didn't have the knowledge they needed to unlock that brain. So really, what's in the way? I love this proverb. It says, if a seed of lettuce will not grow, we do not blame the lettuce. Instead, the fault lies with us, not having nourished the seed properly. We think about manufacturing kids. We need to think about cultivating kids and growing them and figuring out how we nourish them properly. So what's really interesting is that our current system, if there have been 4 decades of research now on the science of what it takes to build a reading and a learning brain, and the 4 decades of research have told us one thing. They've told us that we have a very costly triage, wait-to-fail intervention model. And we should have a prevention model. We have a high-cost, low-quality model, and we want a low-cost, high-quality model. So there are 3 things that you're going to need to know that the science of literacy is now telling us. Scientists looking at the brain. How does the brain develop? And the first thing I'm going to tell you is that education doesn't start at 5. It starts at birth. There are 1 million neurons firing every second from kids when they're 0 to 3 years old. These brains are just soaking everything in. So if your families are talking to you, and they're playing with you, and they're singing to you, you're going to come out with strong oral language skills. And the oral language skills of children who are strong gives them an incredible foundation in kindergarten. The oral language skills of children who are not strong are already stumbling in kindergarten. So early learning matters. The second issue that I will talk about is students have to feel safe and connected to learn. And the third thing I'm going to tell you about is that in kindergarten through third grade, we have to redesign so that it's a prevention model, not an intervention model. So what does great early learning look like? It looks like literally parents just sitting, having kids sit on their lap, talking and playing and reading with them. That loving interaction with words is going to make them flourish. But not all families may not have the literacy skills or the resources to do that. So it really means that our government and our community leaders and our volunteers need to get in the game and help distribute these resources. And here we have Teddy Floyd, police officer, distributing books in our bookmobile. The bookmobile is like the good humor truck, right? Goes out, delivers books. Look how happy the kids are in the neighborhood. We have the rocket that you saw earlier, the rocket bus. It goes out directly to public housing projects and into neighborhoods that are disadvantaged, and it distributes enriched literacy activities, helping families engage with kids in literacy-rich ways. We have engagement specialists in our pockets of poverty, which are people from the pockets of poverty inviting other parents in to family nights and helping them create these habits. We actually now have a puppet, Moonshot, who will create a virtual story time that can go into people's homes. So if the mom or dad can't read, Moonshot can read a story time to your child. Imagine if every child in Indian River County or across this nation had a guaranteed story time every night. So the second thing I wanted to tell you about is kids have to be safe and connected in order to learn. This is literally brain science. Dr. Becky Bailey, who runs an incredible program called Conscious Discipline, created this simplistic version of the brain. There's the red brain, which is your survival brain. And when you're in your red brain, you're saying, am I safe? In your blue brain, you're saying, am I loved? And do I love the work that I'm doing? And in the green brain, well, that's where it's all firing. That's the learning brain. Adults want to be in the green brain. We want our kids in the green brain. So what's it look like in a school when kids are in their red brain or blue brain? The blue brain, you see upset kids. A lot of shame, blame, finger pointing, tattling. The red brain, you actually see kids fighting, fleeing, or freezing. So those apathetic-looking kids that you think don't care, they're in their red brain. You cannot learn when you're in the red brain. We have to navigate ourselves up in order to navigate those children up. This has had the most profound implications for me as a mom, as a citizen. When I look at what's going on the news, there is too much red and blue brain conversations going on, shame, blaming, I'm right, you're wrong. And so it really has taught me, if we are going to transform our children, that we as adults have to understand this and step into our green brains before other people do. This is the key to turning breakdowns to breakthroughs. So the third thing that I said the science of reading tells us is that we have to redesign our K-3 educational spaces. There are three things that our educators need. They're alone right now. A teacher goes into a classroom, she's alone. We've built up a team approach. This teacher, no longer like Tommy's kindergarten teacher. If Tommy's kindergarten teacher was having trouble because she didn't know enough, this teacher now has a coach. Don't we all need coaches? She has a coach who would help her understand what's breaking down in Tommy. How does she create better instruction in the classroom? So now she has a coach, she has great curriculum, but kids still need intervention. If a kid isn't fine, if they're like a Tommy or Liz's son, a Mason, they really need extra time, either during school, after school, or during the summer, or all three. So now, when you do a prevention model, you are investing in those extended learning times in small groups so that kids can catch up. What happens when you do this is you get smiling teachers. They are happy. They know what's going wrong, they know how to fix it, and they feel part of a team. They're no longer alone on this journey. So here are kids. Right? What does it look like to kids? What does it feel like if you're a kid in these environments? These kids are doing where the wild things are. They're putting vocabulary in their bodies. They're happy. They're engaged. They remember. And what's it look like when we're doing small group instruction? The kids are not being pulled too high. They are in groups, properly scheduled so that they are in work-alike groups and their teachers are successful in moving them up and scaffolding them for success. So what's it look like? This is Cindy and her son, Aiden. Aiden is now in 3rd grade. He's reading at a 4th grade level. He was the struggling kindergartner who couldn't. He was at a school that had all of these supports because of this public-private partnership. And Cindy's not just any old mom. Cindy was the principal of that school. Cindy stepped forward and said, "Let me be an innovator. Let us embrace this public-private partnership, and let's do what the right thing for children is." She was so successful at her school, which was a Title I school, high-poverty school, that when the new superintendent came in last year, he promoted her to be the head of innovation for the whole school district. She is now scaling all of our programs because he said, we don't need to keep piloting, we need to scale. Now, what really lies behind this commitment? What did I say at the beginning? What's a Moonshot goal? How does it animate us? How does it help us step up and explore new worlds? This is the community. This community, the set of leaderships, as I told you before, from sheriffs to superintendents to philanthropists to business people, has been working for 10 years straight, meeting monthly, trying to unlock what is getting in the way and turning the breakdowns into breakthroughs. They hold the goal high, and just like the teachers navigated Tommy up, we're navigating up to figure out how to turn every breakdown into a breakthrough. How has this transformed me? I wake up every day, I see a very different world than the one I see on TV. I see a world full of hope. I see a world full of people, passion, purpose, working together in an unstoppable team for our children. And we've learned that we have to step up and get in our green part of the brain and figure out how to get people out of the red part of the brain, because we're about positive, productive, forward change and momentum. We know that literacy is a team sport, and if I go back to what Abraham Lincoln told us, that this is one of the most important things that we the people can be engaged in, I believe that literacy is in fact freedom, that we give a child the ability to learn to read, they can read to learn, they can explore worlds well beyond their front porch, and we have that. We have successful children who are literate, compassionate children who are improving our world. And I will say that my son Tommy just graduated from college as a mechanical engineer and is gainfully employed. Imagine if we could do that for every kid, and they're worthy. Thank you.